hold on tight. 'Cause you know tomorrow may not bring that same thing that you said last night. Woo! Every time I find a little peace of mind, I hold on tight. 'Cause tomorrow may not bring the very same thing. No, no, no. Said none of the right there. You that care all. Just for me, I'm so glad that you that care all. Just for me, I'm so glad that you that care all. For a sinner like me.
Well, hello, Terri. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing today?
Simply fantastic, and thank you for asking. I am so glad and so honored that you answered my call and that you're going to take the time at Where Were You to explain about.
Black American West Museum.
Okay. So you're going to introduce us to the Black American West Museum located in Denver, Colorado. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, now. And when you get started here, can you give us a little bit of background on you yourself, please?
I'm Terri Gentry, and I have an incredible rich history here in Denver, Colorado, with my great-great-grandparents on my mother's side arriving in 1903, and my great-grandparents' great-grandfather arrived in 1906 and went back and married my great-grandmother May 26, 1907, and brought her back to Denver. I'm married to Dwight Gentry, and we have 4 children and 9 grandchildren.
Praise God.
I am a volunteer docent and on the board of directors for the Black American West Museum, and I started last July at History Colorado Center down at 1200 Broadway Street. So I am highly focused on collecting and gathering and celebrating and sharing our histories here in Denver and Colorado.
Listening to you speak, I really do hope that you'll come share more information with us.
Thank you. I'd love to come talk to you about different times and people and experiences. We have such an amazing, vast array of histories in Colorado, and it's an honor to talk about our ancestors and the history that we benefit from based on some of the things that our ancestors have done so that we have better lives.
Today, we're going to be talking about the Black American Western Museum.
Yes, the Black West Museum is in the Five Points neighborhood at 3091 California Street. It's at the far northeast edge of Five Points, which is the oldest neighborhood outside of downtown Denver. The Black American West Museum was started by Paul Stewart in 1971. Paul Stewart grew up in Clinton, Iowa, and as a child, he and his friends would play cowboys and Indians, and sometimes he wanted to play the cowboy. His friends would tell him, there's no such thing as black cowboys. And in 1962, he came out here to visit his cousin, Earl Mann, who was one of our state legislators. They were walking in downtown Denver, and he encountered a black cowboy. The gentleman he spoke to told him that he actually owned land north of Denver and had cattle and horses, and he was the real thing. And that inspired Mr. Stewart. He moved back to Denver a few years later, opened a barber shop on East 34th Avenue and Elizabeth Street. His patrons would come in and talk about their family histories and stories, and he started collecting pictures and artifacts along with those stories to exhibit in the barbershop. All that outgrew the shop, so he started the museum in 1971 at Clayton College, which is at Martin Luther King and Colorado Boulevard. Now, the museum is in the former home of Dr. Justina Ford. She's our first licensed Black woman doctor here in Colorado.
Justina Ford, okay. I know you have information on her, right?
Yes. Dr. Justina Ford grew up in Galesburg, Illinois. She was born in Knoxville, Illinois, grew up in Galesburg, Illinois, and graduated from Herring Medical College in Chicago in 1899. She married Reverend John Ford in 1892. And Reverend Ford and Dr. Justina Ford moved to Normal, Alabama after her graduation, and they helped open a hospital down there. Ford was called to minister here in Denver at Zion Baptist Church. And we know that Zion Baptist Church and Shorter AME Church are our two oldest Black churches in Colorado. Zion Baptist Church was formally organized in 1865. Reverend Ford arrived about 1900 to serve the church, and then Dr. Ford arrived about a year and a half or so later. Dr. Ford was granted her medical license in 1902, but was denied her membership to the Colorado Medical Society. In order to have staffing privileges and access to the hospitals, you were required to have that membership. And she was not granted that membership until 1950. So it took her 48 years to get that membership.
Is there a reason why she couldn't get her membership?
Absolutely. When she was granted her license, the medical examiner told her that he felt bad taking her money because she had 2 strikes against her. She was colored and she was female, and he took her $5 and gave her her license. Well, those were the reasons why the Colorado Medical Society refused to grant her membership, because she was colored and female. She worked out of her home, and she purchased a home at 2335 Arapahoe Street in 1911. Practiced out of her home before she bought that home, and then set up practice again in this home when she purchased this home on Arapahoe Street, and served her clients and traveled around the neighborhood and the community, especially when mom was about to have a baby. She'd be out there at their home helping them bring the baby into the world. And Dr. Justina Ford is known to have delivered more than 7,000 babies.
Wait a minute.
Yes, more than 7,000 babies.
I mean, a bunch of them were in this area.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, so she's touched a lot.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And this is the home where the museum is at.
Yes. She attended the delivery of more than 7,000 babies, more than 37 different nationalities, and knew in the range of 8 to 11 languages and dialects. In addition to that, she took care of a lot of the family, so she was working all the time, because she might deliver the baby, but she's also taking care of mama and the siblings, because she was a pediatrician, an obstetrician, and a general practitioner. She worked all the time. And we've heard a quote that she delivered on average 1 baby every 3 days for 50 years.
That sounds remarkable. Okay, you're going to have to come fill us in on these stories. I know you have a lot of people that you know about that came through here. That was just remarkable, 7,000 babies.
That's just to give you a little insight into the museum. We actually loaded Dr. Ford's house on a truck and drove it from 2335 Arapahoe Street to 3091 California Street in 1984. Well, Dr. Ford passed away in 1952, and then Mr. Allen, she was actually married twice and married to Alfred Allen for quite a number of years. And when she passed away, he sold the home. And the gentleman that owned the home had it for about 30 years. And then a developer came in the neighborhood and was tearing down homes to build a commercial structure. The neighbors contacted Hiawatha Davis, our city council member, and contacted Paul Stewart, who founded the museum, they filed an injunction to stop them from tearing down the house. The developer said, I don't need the house, I need the land. So you can have the house if you can move it. So they were able to get some assistance through Preservation Colorado and other agencies to raise over $100,000 to load the house on a truck and drive it to 3091 California Street.
They wanted that house. I mean,
yes,
they wanted that house, and it's still standing today.
Yes.
And the address again?
3091 California Street.
What would one expect to see when they come visit the museum?
We have an exhibit of Dr. Ford and her history and some other medical professionals in the dining room. She actually used the dining room as her examining room. And we have a little parlor area that focuses on the Five Points neighborhood. And upstairs, we focus on the military, so Buffalo Soldiers and Tuskegee Airmen.
Okay.
The back of the home, and cowboys, and a lot of wonderful artifacts from cowboys, including saddles and other things, and then ranchers and homesteaders and farmers as part of that. So we've got one that focuses on Deerfield, but it represents several of the homesteads throughout the state, and the ranching and farming and homesteaders all combined show you quite a bit of the equipment and the stories of folks scattered around the Western United States that moved out of the South as part of the Exoduster movement.
So what I'm understanding is the museum isn't just only about cowboys. It houses a lot of history, a lot of things that Blacks participated in. You're naming like farming and the cowboys farming. Upstairs, you had the doctors, the ones that were in the professions, and I'm sure you have names on those too that we could get into. I know you do. When we go to the Western Museum, it's more, not as much as cowboy as it is an umbrella that includes the cowboys as well.
Yes, it has a wonderful exhibit specifically focused on Black cowboys on the second floor, but we also want to celebrate the military, including Buffalo Soldiers and the Tuskegee Airmen. So while we had Black cowboys out on the Great Plains taking care of cattle and moving cattle around, we had Buffalo Soldiers scattered throughout taking care of a range of different things. And they were part of that history of the West. The Buffalo Soldiers' first location was at Fort Riley, Kansas in the 1860s. And then we had 9th and the 10th Cavalry and several regiments, 6 regiments that were later condensed to the 24th and 25th Regiment. So seeing Buffalo Soldiers scattered throughout the Western United States, they were our first forest rangers at Yellowstone National Park.
Come on.
I have a number of them on bicycles at Yellowstone National Park. The Tuskegee Airmen are critical. We have several Tuskegee Airmen here in Denver that were part of World War II. They're noted for escorting bombers in and out of Europe during World War II, more than 1,500 missions, and never losing a bomber. In general terms, the escorts were successful about 80% of the time, losing about 20% of the bombers that were going in and out of Europe, and the Tuskegee Airmen never lost a bomber. Their descendants here in Denver that continue to celebrate the legacy of their grandfathers or great-grandfathers and in the work that they do. And so I want to make sure that, we want to make sure we honor them, honor the Black cowboys. To me, the Black cowboys really celebrate the freedom that we acquired after the Civil War, the homesteaders and the risks that they took to pack up and leave the South and move west. It's just amazing to me to look at the work, the energy, and the effort that the Exodusters had to put in place to escape the things that they were witnessing and experiencing in the South with the violence and all of the things that they had to escape to make a new life for themselves and their families.
Well, you have really opened my eyes to something I really had fixed in my head, that museum for cowboys actually been in there. I honestly thought it was just cowboys. And I'm glad that you sharing with me. Maybe there's others that don't know that there's an array of history and knowledge that sits over on that in that building. You talked about the doctor and all the babies, and there's other physicians and doctors that are in there. You've talked about Tuskegee Airmen. All of us should know about those pilots. But you have things to remind us of them that you could touch or look at and see to show. And that has a lot to do with our history, because a lot of places you don't really see something just dedicated to our Black history.
Yes, it's for me, it's an honor to be at the Black American West Museum and to celebrate the ancestors that are in the museum. It helps you understand the context of our community and how rich and diverse our community was, with small Black businesses and entrepreneurs and people figuring out a way to make sure that our community was uplifted, like the Caldwells and the Cousins. Charles and Alta Cousins bought land and property throughout the Five Points neighborhood. They made sure that people had a place to live, place to start their business, and a form of resource for our community. Mr. Leitner, who had the American Woodmen, and just a range of people that were part of our community, because it was a red line neighborhood. That meant that intentionally there would not be resources invested in the neighborhood. So we had people within our community that made sure they figured out a way to create resources for our community. So you'd have a place to live, grocery store, restaurants, all kinds of shops for supplies and goods, places to live and conduct business. And out of that neighborhood, our first Black tenured teacher, Marie Anderson Greenwood at Whittier, our first Black woman principal, Jessie Whaley Maxwell at Whittier neighborhood. With Manual High School, we had Mr. Ward. We had the most amazing educators in our community. And we had folks that really, really looked out for us. We've got the Blair Caldwell African American Research Library, named for Omar D. Blair.
Yes.
And Caldwell. And Omar Blair was our first Black school board president, and Elvin Caldwell was our first Black city councilman. And there's so many other resources in that neighborhood that we've got to celebrate our ancestors.
I started off, like I said, with the cowboys, but you're giving us a little introduction to things that you could elaborate on.
Yes.
I like that. So I'm going to really try to hold you to sharing that information with the public. I really thought it was a cowboy museum and been in there, and that's what's stuck in my mind all these years. But it's something to go visit. What hours can someone come to the museum?
Right now, we're just open on Saturdays. We've been closed the last 3 years and just reopened. And we're run by our board of directors. So the board of directors are volunteering their Saturdays for people to come in, and you get on our website and sign up to come in. And we are looking for volunteer help so that we can open other days of the week. The challenge is that the members of the board all work full time. So that's why we only have Saturdays open, because everybody's working the rest of the week. We would love to have volunteers come help us so we can open other days of the week. So if anyone's interested in that, please reach out to us. On our website is bawmhc.org. That's short for Black American West Museum and Heritage Center, bawmhc.org.
We got that, and we're going to try to see what we can do to get some help here. Saturdays is when you're open now. So yes, if somebody has time on Saturday, they could come if they're sincere, and learn from those that'll be there on Saturday on kind of how to conduct and handle themselves.
Yes.
You know, I really, really thank you for stopping in and giving us this information about
Black American West Museum and Heritage.
Black American West Museum. And I don't know
Yes.
where did I get cowboy from, Terry?
Well, because that's what we're known for, because we have an incredible exhibit about Black cowboys. And that was the original intention of Mr. Stewart, was to showcase that there were Black cowboys, because our history, the way history is written, it was intended to erase the fact that we were ever Black cowboys. The original cowhands and ranch hands were out of Mexico. The vaqueros were the original cowhands and ranch hands. And during slavery, that's what we did. We worked in Texas and Mexico. We were cowhands and ranch hands. And when slavery ended, we continued that tradition and moving cattle through the Great Plains area from Texas to Goodnight Loving Trail into Colorado. We've got places all over Kansas, whether it's Dodge City or another place in Kansas and Nebraska and Wyoming, and another route to California. But we were scattered all over taking care of cattle and out in the Great Plains for months at a time. So it was a pretty important role to be in. That's why it's the Black Cowboy Museum in your mind, because that's what we had. We wanted to showcase Black cowboys. But in addition to the Black cowboys, we want to celebrate the homesteaders, the ranchers, and the farmers, and the military. The military was out there running all over the Great Plains and taking care of everything at the same time. We're in Denver. We want to celebrate the history of the oldest part of the settlements in Colorado, which is in the Five Points neighborhood. We had Black settlements scattered throughout Colorado, more than 25 Black settlements. Also highlight the history of the neighborhood that we're in and the rich diversity of the people that were there, whether they were, whatever their vocation was, they contributed to our community, and we want to celebrate that.
You know, when you tell me about back then and the young man that ran into a rancher, a cowboy that lived out north, there was this cowboy that I knew, Charles Henry Lewis, a champion roper, and he made ropes and things, and he stayed out there. And I actually have pictures of movie stars coming to get his rope. He shoot horses. He did all that stuff out there. Terry, I really appreciate you coming in and stopping. I want to apologize, not just to you, but also to the audience. I thought we was just going to be talking about cowboys. But what I think is we've been introduced to a whole well of history and knowledge. And I would be really honored if you pick out some things and come back again to just tell us these things so that a lot of people will understand more and know more. Can you do that?
It would be my honor to do that. I would love to come back and get more specific and show you some of the folks that we've talked about today. I would love to show you that.
Is there anything that you could leave with someone or tell someone that may be interested in history like you are, that may want to know more or dig more? Or let's say there's people that have history. I've talked to someone had pictures of way back and could point out some of the people. And how would they use that or come to you and make that all work?
Well, there's a lot of resources out there to look at history. One of my favorite is a website called blackpast.org, BLACKPAST.org. And it was started by Dr. Quintard Taylor, professor at University of Washington up in Washington State. And he wrote this wonderful book 30 years ago called In Search of the Racial Frontier that really took a dive into some of the histories throughout the Western United States. And I have a list of some other books that talk about our history, like Black Women in the West, and other things. So
Hey.
I can send you my list, but for now, if people want to look at the blackpast.org website to get them started, and then if they're interested in local history as well, the Black American West Museum is available. Please come in and check us out. The Blair Caldwell African American Research Library is they're going through some remodeling, and they'll be reopened by this summer, and that's another great resource for that history. Let me know what I can do to support that effort and learning all of these different stories.
What are the times that you're open at the museum?
Right now, we're open from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on Saturdays only, and we're asking people to get on our website and sign up for an open slot to come in, because we're only going to move by appointment only right now, so we can keep track of who's coming. We are so short-staffed with volunteers and things. We need to do that. If a group or someone like that, they can also get on our website and make a request for a visit, and one of the board members will see if they can arrange time off from work to run the tour for them.
I really thank you for taking this time. And I know that I see a way to get this information out. You know, at least it'll be available, another source. And a lot of people use Facebook and YouTube, and you'll be on both of those platforms. And everybody heard you say, you will come back now. I'm gonna hold you to it, because you have a wealth of information. And Terri, I really, really am humbled, and I thank you for doing this interview. I know you're a busy lady. I know you're doing a lot of things, and I really feel a little special that you took a little time out for me, and I thank you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Well, another episode of Where Were You? And we would like to thank our guests for this evening. Also want to thank New Me. New Me helps sponsor Where Were You? So go on and check it out. newme.com/Arkway. Also, go on and hit that like. Go on and hit subscribe. Go on and hit that share. Go on and leave a comment. And if you find anyone that has a story, let me know. And hey, you bless someone today.